Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh, dude. Let's do that. Oh.
Good afternoon, everybody. Chris with Old Breed Outdoors, and today we're just gonna have a simple discussion about equipment. So a big question I get a lot is I want to get into archery hunting, or I just want to get into archery shooting. Period. And it's awesome. It's a great sport, and we fully want anybody to get into the game. So the first question that I'll ask the person approaching me is, well, what's your budget? What are we trying to spend here? Because archery equipment can get very expensive, and if you're just trying to just get into it and see if you even enjoy it at all, you don't want to invest a bunch of money into it for something that you're not even gonna like. Whether that's shooting for fun or that's hunting or whatever you're gonna do. So, but after a budget's gone through, there's some great options out there. There's package deals that you can get for a relatively simple price, and it comes with everything that you need ready to shoot. And it's a great way to get brand new into the game, get into the sport of archery, and see if you even want to enjoy it. Before you decide on getting a bow, what I want you to do though is go find a local archery shop and go to that archery shop, and hopefully it's a good one that will allow you to shoot a variety of different bows. Go shoot all the different kind of bows that they have and find what you like. They will also set you up with what your draw length is going to be, and give you some pointers on some different bows that you might be interested in if you want to buy one from them. The reason that you want to shoot a bunch of different bows though is everybody has their own preferences. I have a preference, and what I shoot may not be for you. I have my dad that shoots a bow. I don't really like shooting the kind of bows he likes to shoot. So shooting different multiple options allows you to find what you like, and then you can move forward on purchasing something you like. You don't want to purchase something you don't like and then it puts a bad taste in your mouth for that sport, and then you don't even do it when you actually might really enjoy shooting. So after you found maybe the bow that you want, or the company that you'd like to go with, like I said, a package deal. Almost every company, every bow shop, archery shop, they offer different package deals on different bows for a relatively good price, and it's a decent deal. Another great place to look at is eBay, finding used bows. Nothing wrong with getting a used bow for your first one, no problem at all. Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, finding those used bows. A lot of people, they want the newest and brightest equipment, so every year when the new bows come out, they want to get the new one, so they sell their old one. Or maybe he just didn't want to shoot archery anymore, so he's selling his stuff. Great place to look. The problem with that sometimes is it could be seasonal. So usually a couple months before archery season starts, you'll find bows start popping up on those places, and then right after the season ends. Usually a lot of people want to offload their equipment, after Christmas, after the season has ended. So once you find your bow, now we're going to talk about accessories. So the bow I have right now is a Hoyt Tricon XL. It's an old bow. It's 2006 or 2007 is when I got this one, and it still shoots perfect. One thing I do say is once you have the fundamentals down, and you know how to shoot, you can really pick up any bow and shoot just as good. You don't have to have the most expensive bow out there with all the fancy bells and whistles on it. It becomes more of a preference for you. Yes, there are some bows, like you're gonna pay more if you want a lighter bow, weight-wise and carrying it. Some of them will have less shock when you shoot it, less shock in the hand and vibration, noise, and then just some odds and ends of how smooth it draws, how when you pull it back to the full draw length and you have what's called the wall, how solid is the wall. All of the different companies have their own little nooks and crannies when it comes to that. So you're gonna pay a little bit more if you want some of the better amenities. But when you have the basics down, you can pick up any bow and shoot it just perfectly fine. You don't need to have the greatest equipment out there. So the first piece of gear I want to talk about is the stabilizer. All right, so the stabilizer, what it does is it absorbs some of that shock from the bow when you fire it. Takes it out of your hand and lets you hold a little bit steadier. It also has weights on them to balance the bow in your hand when you're shooting. You can use counterweights, and I've seen some that come off to the side, whether it's left or right, so it helps balance it in your hand while shooting. Great piece of gear. They make different length ones. You have some that are super long. Those are typically a lot of the target shooters shoot the longer stabilizers. There's some that can adjust, telescoping in or out based on what you would like. So you just have to kind of find the right stabilizer for you. And once again, go into your local archery shop. They should let you try a couple different ones to kind of see what you like the best. There's some that you can adjust the weights as you go. So that way, you think you wanted a little bit more front weight, you can add weight. You can take some weight off if it's pulling down on you too much. The next one I want to talk about is the rest. So the rest that I use is a trophy taker. Fall away rest is what they're considered, and almost every bow is going to a fall away rest now. Now your package deals, those are going to have what's called a whisker biscuit, which is a circle with a bunch of whiskers on it and a hole down the center you put the arrow through. Very great rest. I typically I'm not a fan of those rests, but for my East Coast guys or my guys that hunt out of tree stands a lot, that is a perfect rest for you guys, because you don't have to worry about your arrow falling when you're going to that severe angle of shooting off your tree stand down towards the ground. Now this is, once again, an older style fall away rest. A lot of your fall away rests now have a dome around them or some type of a bar around them, so that when you put your arrow on the rest and you're walking around, it doesn't fall completely off to the side or go completely up too high. So it stays right there for your arrow containment. Now the rest obviously supports the arrow while it is on the bow. The idea of the fall away rest is once this arrow leaves, there is nothing impeding it from flying or causing it to kick off to the side, left, right, up or down. So that's the idea of the fall away rest. Almost all rests are either fall away rest now or a whisker biscuit design rest. Next thing I want to talk about real quick is our quiver. So really, you only need a quiver if you're going to be hunting. It allows you to pack in your arrows to where you're going. If you're just going to be target shooting or having some family fun in the backyard, you don't need a quiver on your bow necessarily. Now there's a couple different kinds of quivers you can go with. You can go with the bolt-on kind, two-piece, where you have a separate bottom and top piece that bolt onto your bow and they do not come off. And then they also make some that it mounts to a bracket, usually right here off your sight, and you can actually detach them with a quick detach lever, so you can pull them off or put it back on. I know a lot of guys that they'll have that style quiver, and they'll actually, if they're going to sit in a stand or in a blind or somewhere where they're not going to be moving, they'll detach that quiver and have it offset to next to them or hang it in the tree with next to them, so it doesn't impede anything. I know some guys they get used to shooting with a quiver on because that arrow weight can pull your bow off to the side, left and right. Big topic is your sight. So if you look here, the sight that I shoot is a spot hog sight. Multi-pin. I like the 5-pin. So in your multi-pin sights, usually they come into 3, 5, or 7-pin configurations. 7's a little excessive for me. I like the 5-pin sight. When you're sighting it in, typically you're going to do 20 yards for your top pin, and then 10-yard increments after that. So 20, 30, 40, 50, and then 60-yard pins for sighting it, or for putting that pin on your yardage. I know some guys that do 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, and they break it down that way. Now you can get very detailed with your sights. The sight that I also have, it has micro adjust on it, so I can get very fine-tuned in moving my arrows, my point of aim, those different minute area distances that I want. You don't necessarily have to have that if you're just beginning. All right, you can just have the standard up and down, left and right adjustments. You can also adjust the pins independently as well. The other sight that you can have along with the multi-pin sight is a slider sight. So a slider sight is, it's going to have a dial usually over here on the side, and you're gonna slide it up and down to change your distance. Typically you're gonna have a single pin right here, so you only have one point of aim, and you don't have to worry about getting confused about what pin you're looking at based off of the range that you're shooting for. It does take time though if you're out in a hunting situation, because you have to either estimate the range or use your rangefinder to lock in that range and then adjust the sight accordingly to take that shot. And then if the animal moves and you don't have time to readjust your sight, then you have to use Kentucky windage and kind of adjust from there. So, but it's a good sight. One thing I've been looking at maybe possibly going to is a slider style sight. But with the slider sight that I'm looking at is a 2-pin slider sight. So I have 20 and 30 yards at the ready, and then if I need to go to 40 yards, I can adjust to 40, but I also have maybe 50 yards at the ready as well. In case that animal moves away from me, I can still take that shot without having to readjust my sight. You can spend lots of money on a sight, or you can go fairly cheap. It does not matter. They all have the same purpose. It kind of just goes into what is your preference. Last thing I want to talk about with sights is your pin size. So you can actually adjust these pins and buy different size pins. The ones I shoot are .029. They make a .019, .029, .039, and I believe a .049, which is a pretty big fiber optic cable out there. The bigger you go, the more light they're going to absorb. The better the light, maybe the brighter you can see. If you're in a pretty dark canopied area in your tree stand, or in the jungles of the Northwest, hunting on the Coast Range, there's not very much light down there, and you're at a low light situation, you're the last 15 minutes of light, and that animal steps out, you want to be able to make sure you can see your pins. The smaller pins, they go with the old adage, the old saying, aim small, miss small. Right? If you have a small pin, it doesn't cover up the target as much. Those larger pins at 40, 50 yards, I mean, that's covering the target pretty solid, and you can't get a fine point of aim on there. Also with the sights, there's sometimes you can get adapters on them where you can screw in a light, and it shines a light into your fiber optic cables. The biggest thing I want to say with that though is make sure you check your regulations for your state. There's some states that is an illegal item, and you cannot have that on your bow. So make sure you check before you spend all this money on a bow or on a sight, and you can't even use some of the features on it. Another sight out there is the Garmin Zero, where it has a built-in rangefinder into the sight. Once again, check your local regulations. That sight is illegal in some states, especially out in the West. So before we go on away from the bow itself, we're going to talk the string. So on the string, you're going to have a peep sight. All right, this is your rear peep. If you're used to shooting a rifle, this is your rear sight aperture. All right, and there's different kinds. All right, there's this one is only got this cable the string split in 2 sides. Doesn't have anything attached to it, so it sets when I draw it back, it lines straight up for me. Takes a little bit more fine tuning to get that to line up perfectly when you pull the bow back, but I prefer this one. There's another one that's a circle one like this that splits it into 3, the triangles, so no matter which way you pull the bow back, it is going to line up for you perfect every time. And then there's another one that has a rubber tube that comes off, and you tie the rubber tube on the side here on this cable, and when you pull it back, that rubber tube lines up the peep, so it lines up every time when you pull the string back to your face. I'm not a big fan of the rubber tube, only because you don't want that buck or that elk of your dreams to step out. You go to draw back, the rubber snaps, and next thing you know, the deer or the elk run off, and now you're not getting your shot opportunity. So I'm not a big fan of that. The next thing down here is where your knock placement goes. This is where the arrow goes into the string. A couple different kinds you can do. So the ones I do, I use a tie-in style. They have brass nocks that you can pinch onto here, perfectly fine. I just prefer the tie-on kind. And then a D-loop. All right, so a D-loop allows you to take your release and connect it directly behind the arrow, so that when you pull back, there's nothing binding on that arrow, nothing binding on that string at all. There are some, if you don't have a D-loop, you're going to be connecting the release to the string itself, and it has a potential to bind on that arrow and cause pinching. And if your hand adjustment gets kind of messed up during your release, it can affect your arrow as well. A lot of people, I don't see anybody really do not shoot D-loops anymore. Typically every bow archery shop is going to tie on a D-loop for you, whether you request it or not, typically, or they're going to try to talk you into a D-loop. Now we got the release. So there's different kinds of releases that you can get. This is what they consider a single caliper release, where only one jaw of that release opens up. In a dual caliper release, both jaws open up evenly for string to come straight out of the release. Coming off that release, you can have a couple kinds. Mine is a rope, so it's flimsy. There's also rods that come straight out like this, to where it doesn't have as much freedom of play. This is a rod and a rope combination, but I really like just the rope solid piece. The number one thing I say to every new archer when you're getting a release, get a buckle style release. So here you have just a Velcro style that would strap around your wrist. In another video that I'm going to do talking about the fundamentals of shooting, you're going to hear me say consistency a lot. A Velcro style release does not allow you to have the same consistency as a buckle style. That buckle style, you're going to put it through the same hole in the buckle every time, and it's going to be in the same position on your wrist, pulling the same on your wrist when you're holding back that string on the bow. So I always tell everybody, get a buckle style release. It helps a lot with consistency when it comes to that. And it doesn't make the noise that a Velcro does if you're trying to adjust it out in the woods. For arrows, so make sure you go to your archery shop and you get the right spined arrows for your bow. So when an arrow flies out, it's flexing up and down based off of the momentum that's pushing from the string. You want to make sure that you don't have an arrow that's too stiff, but also you don't want one that's too flimsy and it's wobbling, doing everything and fishtailing all over as it's flying towards the target. It'll greatly increase your accuracy a lot if you can make sure you have the right style arrow. Fletching length, whether you go with plastic vanes or feathers, you go small 2-inch. I shoot 4-inch, 3-vane, 4-inch. I know a lot of guys that shoot 4 vanes but shorten it up. That's all personal preference. I do this because I've been shooting this way forever, so I'm kind of just stuck in my way. I have thought about going to a smaller 1.5 or 2-inch vane on the back, just to kind of lessen up the weight on my back end and get a little bit more heavier weight on the front end for a heavier front of center. You're actually probably going to have Garrett doing a video on arrow style with broadheads, and he's going to be dabbling with some stuff of going to a heavier arrow and seeing if we can get some better penetration out of that vice going with your standard. He might be going actually stiffer and heavier arrow setup, like 150, 200 grain broadheads, where I just shoot the standard 100 grain broadhead. There's multiple different kinds of broadheads out there. You have your fixed blades right here, where they can be 3 and they can be 4 bladed. You also have what they consider expandables, when they are narrowed down, held usually by a rubber band, and then when they hit the target, they expand, or hit the animal when they expand out, and bigger cut in diameter. One thing that me and Garrett have both been looking forward going towards is what they consider a single bevel, and it's a solid one-piece broadhead that's only got 2 sides to it, and sometimes they have little tiny blades that come out perpendicular to that cutting surface for bleeder vanes. But usually you can get heavier weight on those. You can resharpen those. You don't have to worry about replacing the blades on them at all or anything like that. And like I said, that might be a video coming out here in the future on broadhead specific. Whether it's right before hunting season, or we might do one after hunting season for a little bit of a review based off of what we do. The last thing I want to talk about real quick is you'll see some bows will have it, and it'll have a loop down here at the back end that's connected to your stabilizer. That loop is for you to put your wrist through, so that way the bow is always connected and that you don't have to worry about the bow falling out of your hand while shooting. I'm not a big fan of those. When I do shoot, I'll use what's called a finger sling, and you just wrap one end around your thumb, the other end is around your index finger. You tighten them up, and now that bow's in my hand and won't fall out of my hand when shooting, and I'm getting that good follow through. The biggest thing I want to stress when you get a bow is find a good bow shop. Go there, get your draw length set. The number one mistake I see with a lot of people is they have improper draw length. Get that draw length set, get yourself sighted in, basic 10 yards, then 20 yards. Get yourself hitting the target consistently and very well. That will be very beneficial to you just getting into the sport. Whether you're doing it for family, it's a family sport. I know Garrett's entire family shoots. Me and my daughter shoot together, and we can go out to different events that clubs and other organizations put on where you can walk through the woods and shoot 3D animals. And it's a good time for the whole family, getting them outdoors, getting them outside, even if you don't want to hunt. A lot of guys want to get into it for hunting because there's a lot of better opportunities in some states. A lot of times you can hunt the deer or the elk during the rut, which is an easier, the animal is more vulnerable during that period of time. So it's easier to get in there close on them. Or they just want the challenge. Archery hunting's challenging. I think it's as low as a 10% success rate across the nation for archery season. Not everybody will shoot an animal every year. When it comes to archery hunting, it can be very difficult. But it's a great sport overall to get into. I love to shoot. It's a stress reliever for me. A lot of people can do it in their backyard depending on what kind of zoning regulations you have. You can get a nice target and just shoot in your backyard, and good family event. If you have any questions about further gear, whether you're just getting into the sport or maybe you're ready to take your bow to that next level, go ahead and shoot us a message, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, or put a comment down on the video, and we'll get back to you on our recommendation. Not that I know everything, but I like to say I know a little bit about some stuff. So I can help you out, do the best I can, and I hope you appreciate it, and I hope to see you go out and get a bow this year, and good luck if you go hunting. Thank you.